This is Season 2 of the Brew Ink Podcast. And welcome to another Brew Ink Podcast. We got a special episode for you tonight. We are starting our Flash Fiction competition. And we've got 2 stories for you to listen to today and vote on. And that's going to be a very important part of this mini-season is the voting, because we're going to be pitting one story against another, and whoever wins between those 2 stories is going to move on to the next round and go against the winners of the other rounds as well. And we're going to figure out who writes the best short stories. And we already know that there are a couple people here that love to do short stories. So, you know, Sarah,
somebody might have an advantage.
Right.
We're not going to say
have
who.
An advantage. We'll see.
Don't
Just put the pressure on. Yeah. That's some psychological pressure right there.
Is it?
I know your tricks.
Yeah.
I feel the tension.
We are very excited to give you guys this new content that we're doing. We're so happy to wrap up Boneyard. We started way back in January of this year, and it's been a journey for us and for you guys, our faithful listeners. So thank you for coming along on that with us and all your input. And, we had a really, really good turnout for the final episode. Yeah. The most downloads that we've had on an episode yet. And we're happy to have you guys with us, listening to us on a consistent basis. Now, for tonight, we've got an interesting topic that we're going to kind of dive into. We want to debate or question or explore the idea of how do you balance your life of a writer versus your life as, a family person or personal.
A human.
Yeah, a human, exactly. Not all of us have kids here. Not all of us are married. We know not all writers are at the same level as every other writer, but there has got to be a balance to it. Like, how do you make it a part of your daily routine? Or if you can't make it a daily routine, how do you make it a part of your weekly routine?
Yeah, so kind of the idea behind this is for all of us in this room, none of us are making money at this yet. Right? And for most people who start writing, they don't start writing making money. It's not like they decide, I'm going to be a writer. They apply for the job. Oh, I get to write books now. Right. I'm going to be making whatever. Right? Like, almost every writer starts with, this is kind of a hobby.
Yeah, we actually just did an interview tonight, which you guys should be able to check out in about, a month from now. And he was talking about how he wanted to be a writer for like 30 years, but he listened to like Stephen King talk about how he had to decide whether he wanted to buy food or pay bills, and he's like, I should probably pick another job that will make me money, and then I'll write on the side until I get. And so he's finally published, and he has his first book, and it's successful. But it's been a 30-year journey. Yeah.
First published book. He's written 3 others.
Oh, yeah, so, good.
That was when I thought this was his first book written and published, and it's so good. I was like, drop the mic, I'm out. I'm out.
And I think that's one of the best things that we're learning from these Interbrew episodes. And if you haven't checked them out, go ahead and go back and listen to them. But a lot of these authors that are published now, you're finding out that the thing that's published and does well is not the very first thing that they wrote. Yeah. They've got 2 or 3 other, what they would consider complete manuscripts that it either isn't ready to be published yet, or has just been it's never going to see the light of day.
or a lot of times it's that the market isn't looking for that particular type of story.
Sometimes
yet.
It's a timing.
Sometimes it's a timing thing, like Mary Weber, and we haven't interviewed her yet, but she talked about how she had this big science fiction story that she was very excited about, but the YA market wasn't looking for science fiction. They were looking for fantasy. But then when they were looking for science fiction, she had this.
She had something for them.
So you see that a lot of times. Like, the first thing people write aren't always the first thing that gets published.
And that's why the adage that you might hear, either especially on our podcast, but you might see it or read it other places, is, successful writers are the writers that don't stop writing.
Yeah, that don't give up.
And I think the real point to this is that you can be a great writer, and it takes a long time to get to the point where you're selling something.
Yep.
And during that time, you have to decide what your priorities are, and you have to stick with them.
Yeah.
There are times when you can get really buried in writing. You can get, I want to do this, and I want to make this work so badly that I'll do anything to do this. But you don't need to do that. I mean, if you're a parent or a family person, you need to pay attention to that stuff. And that's what we're talking about, is that balance of family life and realizing, and not just family life, but other things in life as well, realizing that there are other things that are important.
So, Bill, let's start with you. I know you've got a really good system for your writing. I'll maybe pull this out of you, but you've got even spreadsheets that break down kind of what you're doing each day and how much time you're devoting to different things. So give us a little bit of your process of how you balance your writing versus your regular life.
I would like to say that it's in balance. The truth is, I struggle with this on a daily basis, and that's why I did that. I created a spreadsheet that said, I'm writing this, and I don't count how many hours I write a day. I count the word count, whether it's positive or negative, because truthfully, sometimes it's negative.
Yeah.
And you want it to be. I had that experience this week, and we'll talk about that later, I guess. But, as far as just getting there, it's important to me that I have a balance in life, and that there are several other things that I do as hobbies. And writing used to be a hobby. It's no longer a hobby. It's something I do all the time. And I have an exceptional situation where I'm able to do that right now. Okay, I'm not making any money at it, but I'm still able to write full time. So I put in minimum 3 hours a day writing. Now, where that gets hard is when something else interrupts, like I get sick. This last week I got ill, and so I'm still putting in the 3 or 4 or 5 hours a day writing, because that's what it takes to do. When you're sick, it takes 4 or 5 hours to do 2 hours worth of work.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm still doing that, but there's no time to do the other things that are the balance. And I realized that after a couple of days, and realized I had to take time away, which is kind of what this is really timely for this topic, because that's what happened to me. This week I experienced how hard it is when you've only got 3 hours worth of energy and you're writing for 5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
To deal with the rest of life. And it's not easy, and you have to be conscious of it, because there are human beings, living, breathing human beings around you that need you.
Yeah.
Hopefully they're breathing.
No matter
Hopefully
what.
they're living and breathing.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That's 3, Sarah.
Yeah, and that's true through all the stages of life, whether it's young children or older children or your wife. Like, so there's always going to be someone there that needs you to be present and aware of, interacting with them.
That balance is a real serious issue for us, and we have to keep it in mind all the time, every day. I like this topic this week because it's so important for me this week. Timely for me this week.
And to me, one of the reasons I liked it too is because there are probably a lot of people out there, even if you're not a writer, there might be something else that you have a dream about, but that you might want to see come to fruition one day, and you have to work another job, and you've got a family. Like there's other people who do that, and one of the values to me of going to some of these writers' conferences or listening to our interviews, and that's one of the reasons why I love that we're doing these now, is to show people, like, I have never met a writer who said, yeah, I wasn't really writing, and I just kind of like blew it off,
out for me.
and it just kind of worked out for me. And I started like every writer that I've ever heard talk about their writing career was, I treated it like a job before I made money at it. Like, I treated it like, and again, they had other jobs, or they had to get up early in the morning, whatever their system was, they had to find that time. And it's hard sometimes, man, when you got 3 kids and you got 2 jobs already, and now you add a third one. I mean, I'm just saying, like, it's not an easy process, but it can be rewarding. It should be.
All right, so we're going to go clockwise around the table next to Evie. Evie, how do you balance your writing life versus your personal life?
I don't.
Well, I know you've got a great situation too, where your husband really understands you, and he'll actually buy you.
He buys me time.
Weekend getaways at hotels so you can write.
Well, I mean, my husband is awesome. That is true.
Shout out to Lee.
Exactly.
Shout out to Lee. But
he does not understand her.
I was about to say.
He understands her needs sometimes, but
he knows that look. He's like, oh, okay, time to get her away from us. No, I have, we have 3 kids together. combined. And then I have a business I run, and then Lee works full time, and then on top of that, obviously I'm a stay-at-home mom. And so in between those times to write gets really frustrating because most of the time I'm writing with somebody on my shoulders.
Or a dog.
Yes, my dog. Oh my goodness. Anyway, finding time in between is really hard, and so Lee has learned to just once a month to get me a hotel room and go, I'll see you in 24 hours. And he doesn't even leave me a car. He leaves me stranded there so that I can just focus. There's nothing else to do. I may as well write. And so that's been really sweet. I have a very supportive husband, but I'll be honest, I don't do it well. One of the reasons why I kind of find myself often sliding into writer's block simply because of the busyness of our life. Mm-hmm. And so it's great to be able to sit here and talk and hear everybody else's way of doing it because I don't got one. I'm still learning.
There's no one perfect way. So the more you can hear about different styles, you can go, absolutely. That would work for me.
Yeah.
Right. But that kind of comes with the territory of being the baby writer of the group, It's like, I still have time to figure this out. I've just started.
Yeah.
So, that's me.
That's good. Oh, well then we'll shift on over to Brit. For you.
Yeah, so for me, it's really been difficult the last couple of years. I mean, I already had 2 jobs and, of course, a wife who teaches. And so I do a little bit more with the kids because of my schedule. And then we planted a church. So if you ever want something to suck up all of your time, you should plant a church. But yeah, it's just, it really has to come down to making that time and just really dedicating time and saying, okay, I have about 50 million things I need to do this afternoon, but what I'm going to do for an hour or 2 hours, and you just have to keep blocking off. And it's been more difficult for me to keep as consistent in the last couple of years. And it's also been, for me, it's been an extra challenge in the last 6 months. Because once you get an agent, they give you more work to do. Right. Like, it's not just like, why don't you just write? Like, now they're like, well, you should do this and you should do that. And now I'm learning how to do all these things, right? And so it is a constant learning thing. It's a constant issue of saying, how do I fit this in? And how do I make it a balance? Because I'm the kind of person who, quite honestly, I want to live a life I could tell a story about. Like, I want to live the kind of life that I can have stories to tell. And so I love writing and I love telling stories, but I also love just living life as well. I don't want to just be holed up in my room by myself. And my wife calls it book world. So when I get really into a zone writing-wise, my wife says, you're in book world, which means, in other words, come out of book world and come be with us. You're at the dinner table. Stop fighting dragons or whatever you're doing in your brain. Come be with us. And so, and I think it's a really important thing because the way I look at it is, when we were realm makers, and Mary Rever said it, like, when I die and I stand before God, He's not going to go, how many books did you write? Right. It's going to be like, how did you love the people closest to you? Yeah. And the people who really mean something to you. And yes, I should be a good writer and want to do really well, but those things should be so it is a constant.
How did you deal with the relationships that were in your life?
Yeah. And so I do think it's an important topic because we want to be diligent and be good stewards of our time and work really hard, and that there's a lot of value in that, but at the same time realize you got 2 little kids, and so it's important to find that balance.
Bill? And we want to be published.
And we
so there's a balance there.
And moving right along to Sarah. Sarah, how do you balance? I know you write mostly short stories, so it's probably
it's super easy. Just crank those babies out.
Yeah.
Be like, no.
There's my writing.
But seriously, though, I did finally get a computer at home. I was actually just writing at work when I was supposed to be working. Nobody I work with listens to this, so I'm not going to get busted.
I can edit that out for you.
So, like, on days when I was super bored, I would just, write a story or something. But I did actually the other day, I actually sat down and wrote at my house for the first time. And it was interesting. I struggled with it a little bit because the setup of the computer is like, anyways, it's kind of weird. So I'm trying to get used to that. Sitting at a table, but it was funny because I had a lot of other things I could do. I mean, I'm a single parent, so like I come home and it's like, get this done, do the dishes, cook this food, you know, and I can fill my time. And a lot of times I struggle with wanting to write but doing things instead. Like it's almost like this self-sabotage maybe in a way. You know, you're on a diet but you eat like 7 cookies and you're like, well, I don't know why this is happening. Maybe I'm the only one that struggles with that.
Because you're on a diet.
Exactly. It's like as soon as I make a decision to do something good, I want to like immediately screw it up. So I just made myself sit down and I had this idea for a story. It's actually autobiographical, but it is something that keeps popping up in my head about being at a pig roast when I was a little girl, and I just wanted to write a story about it. And lately I've been really wanting to write a lot of autobiographical stories from memories that I don't want to lose. I don't know why I'm feeling compelled. I did. I sat down and wrote for like a couple hours. I only got like 2 paragraphs done because I kept going back. But it was interesting because it gave me energy and I didn't feel like I had to just sit there and keep doing it. And it was fun. But I think that the bottom line is you can't overthink it. You just, even if it's only 20 minutes, do it. Don't say I have to carve out 4 hours because like I'm never going to do that.
Yeah.
If you have to write for 10 minutes, write for 10 minutes. Yeah. It's just like exercise. You know, if you can park your car far away and walk to the grocery store, do that. You know, find little ways to like get more time. And I think that's working for me. Yeah. So, especially when...
I think that's really good.
Yeah, especially when you're... when you do have a lot of things, you know, my son plays sports and I don't have a laptop and I don't find that I can write just anywhere, but I also spend a lot of time thinking about ideas and I write those down. So even if I'm not in front of a computer, I am making little notes and doing all that stuff. Yeah. So, just do it, right? Nike, baby. What?
Just do it.
Just do it.
Yeah.
And you know, for me, you know, it's never going to be the same for anyone. Everyone's schedule is always shifting, and I think scheduling is something that's very important that you have to go back to every 3 months, every 6 months, and you know, you go back to it, and you go, is this still working? So for me, the first half of this year, I could wake up early, and I could write early in the morning, but then when my son started kindergarten, he's waking up much earlier now, and I'm having to help them, you know, get ready for school before I leave for work. So that time that I had blocked off is getting shorter, and so I'm having to reinvent and redefine when my writing time is, and you know, so it's something you have to pull back on sometimes and go, is this working? When can I fit it in? And you know, sometimes I have to, you know, steal time away and say, you know, hey, I'm coming home an hour later because I got to spend an hour writing this blog post, or I got to spend an hour just working on my own personal story, you know, whatever it is. And I think balancing it, like Bill was talking about, you know, word count, but also, you know, keeping within 2 to 3 hours. You got to figure out, you know, how much time are you giving to the other important things in your life? Maybe it's not family, maybe it's your work, maybe it's your job.
The other part of the job is marketing and selling what you have. So if all you do is write and you never go out and try to pitch this to agents and publishers, you're not.
You got to find where to put that into your schedule.
For my part, I mean, if all you want to do is write, that's fine. But if you want to write and get published, you've got to do that. You've got to do that work, and you've got to have it in the schedule. So that's the other part of the schedule. That's another part of the balance of the schedule.
Yeah, it's all about finding priorities. What ranks in a priority above, you know, the next thing and the next thing. And you know, as men of faith or whatever, you know, you do have a hierarchy that's there. You know, God, your family, your job, your community. You got to figure out what is it. Where does it fall in place for you? Do I need to give this many hours to writing? Do I need to spend 6 hours, you know, writing on a Saturday or something? Or is that, you know, going overboard, and I need to maybe come back to just 2 hours on a Saturday and then find, you know, 1 hour here, there throughout the rest of the week to plug it in. Sarah,
yeah, and I was one other thing I was going to say think about it like an investment. I mean, sometimes I can put $400 into my savings account, and sometimes I can put $25 into my savings account. So when things shift, because they always will, I should take the advantage of that time and write more when I can write more. And then when other things happen, there's a season for everything. As a single parent, it is difficult for me to justify spending a lot of time writing when I really need to spend time with my son. I mean, for me, I'm not saying that, I don't know about anybody else, but I don't feel comfortable sacrificing my time and energy with writing to take away from him. But I know that in a few years now, he's 9, he'll be like, peace out, Mom, go and hang out with my friends and my bros. Don't call me, don't talk to me, I don't care. Like, he'll be on his own thing.
Sometimes,
and I'll have more freedom to do the things that I like to do. But I can't just, like you were saying, I don't want to get to the end of this parenting thing and regret spending not a lot of time with him. So, that's something I have to remember too, that yes, I love to write, but I don't want to miss out on this time with my son, because I will not get those days back. So.
Yeah, and sometimes for me, my writing time will be, making up stories with my son for a bedtime story or something, because he loves doing that, or he wants to know like how to write, and so I'll try and sit him down and teach him something on the computer, or or
cool.
In the way of like character development or something like that. But it's all about, and this is what we're talking about. It's all about balance and finding out what works for you. And Katie, with you being newly married, how are you balancing your writing time?
Oh, I'm not. My excuse lately has been I've come home and after I've eaten I just feel terrible, and so I don't do anything. That's something that I really need to kick, especially with my art, which I think is more important than writing. So I have been putting hours into writing and stuff, but at this point it's been more research, more reading, more puzzling out stuff, especially for Bone Breaker, and then figuring out how to make my storybook, my picture book manuscript into a script and this and that. With me, I just need to figure out how to set time apart in the evenings and just do it, even for a little bit, whether I'm feeling up to it or not, which is hard to do, but it'd be worth it.
Well, like Sarah was saying, sometimes that 10 minutes is golden. If you can just get into that story mode and remind yourself, okay, this is where I'm at, and this is where I'm going, and I've done it, I figured out this one aspect of what I need to do for you. Maybe it's figuring out how to frame a scene or something, but like 10 minutes even.
Yeah, and
keeping it daily.
I found when I do put in the time to write or to draw, then it's a lot easier to keep doing it. But just getting that initial step or several steps is always the hardest.
Yeah. And I'm on like the opposite spectrum of you. Like I've got some artistic skills, but when I sit down to draw, I'm like, man, I could be working on this part of my book or writing this, and I'm like, like I know I need to keep drawing, but like for me, I'm like, man, I could be sending out this email or whatever.
I think one important thing to kind of mention as we're kind of transitioning, but a big part of this is having people in your life also who support it.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying it's a requirement, but I am saying that for most people, it's helpful to have, make sure your spouses. I think everyone in here, who's married can say that their spouse understands to some degree and supports it, right?
Yeah.
And for even for Sarah, what a great thing to have a group that tells her she's a good writer, she should keep writing and make time for it. I mean, how many people did we meet at Realm Makers who are like, I don't have anybody,
right.
and just and how discouraging that can be, and just a big part of success is having people in your corner who say, you're good at this. Just keep trying and keep doing it.
That affirm you.
And that affirm you. And especially, my wife is amazing, and we all have amazing spouses, but my wife is amazing in realizing I need that time. Now, again, she'll call me on it if it gets too much, or if she feels like I'm pulling away and I'm not, she'll call me on it. But at the same time, it's such I'm so fortunate to have someone who's like, no, I want to support you fulfilling this. I think this is worthwhile. I think this is worth investing in. And I think that's really important.
Awesome. So yeah, that was our topic for tonight. Finding the balance between your writing life and your personal life. And we're going to move into the flash fiction story.
Brew Ink is now syndicated on SeriousWriter.com. See them at SeriousWriter.com for resources, articles, videos, topical classes, and now a podcast, the Brew Ink Podcast, because we're syndicated on SeriousWriter.com.
Up first for you, we've got Katie Compton with her version of Strongbow, which was based on the fairy tale genre. And go ahead and take it away, Katie.
Strongbow, a fairy tale. Once upon a time, there lived a poor traveling bard who traveled from village to hamlet in order to play for his wages. He played his fiddle wherever there was someone to listen, and sometimes where only the dogs and the wild beasts heard his song. He played at weddings and funerals, births and festivals, but most often he played beside small hearth fires. The bard never asked for much, and the people gave him what they had: a hot bowl of soup and bread and a dry roof to sleep under. Rarely more and rarely less, and the bard had all he needed. One autumn day, before the chill of winter had come down from the mountains, but after the fields put on their dry golden coats, the bard came across a village where there was no song. The men in the fields labored quietly. The children in the streets played without laughter. The women scrubbed their clothes without cheer. The bard wondered to himself and decided that he would be the one to bring a song to these people. He took down his fiddle from his donkey's saddle, plucked a string, and set his bow to a lilting jig. The song warbled from his fiddle and called the people to dance, to smile. But no one lifted their heads and no one lifted their feet. The bard continued playing until he was in the center of the village, and still no one had come. He tried a different song, several songs, a love song, a ballad, a lullaby, and no one came. He set his bow to his fiddle for a particularly rousing tune when the mayor of the village came bustling down the street toward him. At last, the bard thought, someone came to hear my music. But it was not so. "You must stop playing," the mayor cried. "Can you not see that we do not play music or sing songs here? You must stop." The bard lowered his bow. "Why for? Music is good for the heart and a balm for weary hands. It sends love fluttering and the eyes to weeping. Why, sir, is there no music? Have you not heard? There is a terrible ogre in the mountain who hates music, and he will destroy us if the sound of your fiddle reaches his ears. We have only just rebuilt since he ravaged our town when he came a year ago. We have not had music since, and we will not have music now." The bard considered this. "If you'll give me shelter and food for 3 days, on the 4th day I shall go into the mountain and free your village from the hold of the ogre. You shall not hear even a whistle from me until I return, and then all of your musicians, anyone who can sing or pound a drum or pipe a flute, must play in celebration." The mayor shook his head. "How shall you kill an ogre? You are a small man, and I see no weapon on you. Your hands are calloused from the fiddle and not from fighting. What can a bard do against such a monster?" But the bard smiled and bowed. "You have my word that it shall be done." "Very well," the mayor said, and laughed, but it was not a mirthful laugh. "You shall have what you need, but know that if you do not slay the ogre, you go to your death." The bard slept that night in the mayor's own home. The mayor was a generous man, and he gave the bard a place at his own table, and a room in his house, and the bard gave back what he could by regaling the mayor's 3 children with stories of knights and dragons and faraway princesses. It was all he could do with his fiddle silent. The bard left the house before sunrise and returned the first night reeking of animal fat. The second night he returned stained with soot. The third night he returned to the mayor's home with splinters under his nails, but a smile on his face. Early the next morning, the bard packed his fiddle and set off toward the mountain. He found the ogre's den by noon in a cleft that stank with rotting meat. Bones of men and animals littered the floor of the cave. No bird sang, no insect chirped. Not even the wind sighed for fear of the monster. At the mouth of the cave, the bard picked up his fiddle. There showed the work of the last 3 days. The fiddle's neck was adorned with bright new catgut strings. The bow was sharp with white horsetail hairs and strengthened with oak, and at his hip a small, slim dagger rested. The first note was a hum, and then it lilted to a full note, then two, and then a three-note melody, and within the ogre stirred. The bard clutched his bow and entered the cave. From the village, as the sun began to set, they all heard the bard's song. It screamed like a fury and wailed like a banshee. The butcher and the plowman wept. The song turned to a lovesick keening and a maiden's pining. The woodsman and the carpenter's daughter joined hands. The song, last, raged with the warrior's ballad and the highwayman's laughter. The blacksmith's hands fell from his bellows, and he stood and grinned. There was a pause, and then the song returned with the jig, the same that the bard had entered the town, and the people set to dancing. The song followed the bard all the way back, and he stepped into the town square with the sun's last light. From his belt he threw the ogre's ears, and the people knew the beast had been vanquished. The musicians began to play. From then on, the bard became known throughout the land as Strongbow, the bard who killed the ogre with music.
Very good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Nicely done.
All right, so that was Katie with Strongbow. And now we're going to have Brit Moony with his version of Strongbow, but based on the genre legend.
Strongbow, a legend. I can't do this, I say. Grandma Janice's head turns from watching the old box TV. I can almost hear her sandpaper skin crinkle, and her long, straight white hair falls over her shoulder like a waterfall. Grandma's dull brown eyes blink and focus on me, a girl too skinny and too young in a gray striped business suit that hugged my butt uncomfortably and pressed my almost non-existent boobs flat on my chest. Orinda. I don't know if she says my name because she wants to use my full name. Everyone else calls me Renda, a nickname, or to remind herself who was in front of her. What are you talking about? I lift the briefcase full of references and my NYU transcripts. The job interview, Grandma. Ah, yes. This is a big job, I continue. I'm up against a lot of people. Grandma lifts the remote from the rusted metal tray in front of her that also holds the caked remains of her breakfast oatmeal. The TV blinks off. Sit, Orinda. That time she uses it on purpose. I sigh and come sit next to her on the couch. You know the story of how you got your name, she asks. Orinda? It means magic power. No, your family name. Strongbow. She nods. I shake my head. I always thought it was just a family name. Grandma growls and shifts her weight to face me. Names always mean something. You should have heard this long ago. My parents died when I was young. My mother from breast cancer. My father a year before that in prison. But she knows that. Okay. She coughs. A pained sound, but when she looks me in the eye, I can't move. 300 years ago, she begins, the white families migrated into the valleys and plains of our people. They stole land, and when some of our tribe fought back, the soldiers and guns followed to move us for good. There was a young warrior from a village to the north near the Great Lake. He heard the stories of how the white soldiers killed whole villages, and one day, while out on a hunt with his brother, he saw the soldiers coming. Many soldiers. He knew that the village had to move to survive, but there would not be enough time. He sent his brother back to tell the village to escape to safety farther into the forest. His brother obeyed and left his arrows. The young warrior waited until the soldiers came into a thick part of the forest, and he began to hide and shoot them with his bow. He killed one after another. They yelled and screamed in anger, but they could not see him. He became a part of the forest, and the forest hid him from their view. When he ran out of arrows, the trees helped the young warrior by fashioning more and more arrows for him. But even with the help of the forest, the young warrior could not kill all the soldiers. He was shot and killed. But he killed many soldiers that day and provided his village with enough time to escape. The forest buried him under fertile soil and mounds of leaves, forever a part of the land. He had a name before, but that name has been forgotten. They call him Strongbow from that day. And the young warrior had a son that survived him. His family kept and remembered the name, and that name has been passed down to you. Grandma Genesee places her hand on my own. That is your blood, your family. That is a strong spirit inside of you. You may not wield a bow, Orinda, but you are a warrior of a different kind. I frown. Are you saying I should die for this job? You know what it means, Arenda Strongbro. Believe what you will. Grandma wiggles back to face the TV. She uses the remote to turn it back on. I look at Grandma for a long time. Then I stand and go to my bedroom in the back of the single-wide trailer. 2 hours later, I am called into the HR manager's office. He is a short, balding man. When he sees me, he stares. I wear a tan skirt down to my ankles under a long brown formal blouse embroidered with the markings of the Iroquois people. My straight black hair is tamed with an old headband given to me on my 13th birthday. It has colorful patterns of a vibrant forest. My boobs and butt are way more comfortable. I walk up to the manager and extend my hand. He drops a paper and stands to greet me. My name is Arenda Strongbro, I said. I'm here for the job. The manager's eyes twinkle. Pleased to meet you, Miss Strongbow. He waves at the seat in front of his desk. I thank him and sit. He picks up the paper again, my resume, and he peers at it. Strongbow. That is an interesting name. Can you tell me where it comes from? I smile at him. Gladly.
Right, nicely done. Nicely done. No, so yeah, great job, both of you guys. And Britt, you, what were you at? You were at
860.
860
words. Yeah, 860 words.
And then Katie, you were right at 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She was in here editing like right at the last minute, going, I gotta cut back a few words.
I had to remove 20 words.
I love how it kills the ogre with music. I love it. That's
yes.
awesome.
Thanks.
I think both of you nailed the genres.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that's scary to me because I'm going to have to write, and we've got some awesome genres. Awesome. I've managed to
Awesome,
work
yeah, I'm gonna
awesome
go with that.
genres.
There's a new word for you writers
Yeah,
out
that's
there.
right. All right, so now what's next is that people need to go vote.
Yeah.
So now, after you've listened, we're going to have a voting link on Facebook and on the website where you can go and vote between myself and Katie.
That's right.
And just vote for whoever you think, was the best.
Yeah, whichever story you enjoyed more, whichever one impacted you more, or you thought like, man, that was a great use of the title, or it's a great use of the genre.
Whichever one you like the best.
Yes, whichever one you like the best. But please vote, and don't forget to go check out SeriousWriter.com, and also, go on our Instagram and Facebook and our webpage and give us likes and follows, and, stay tuned for everything that's coming up next. And until next time, you guys remember to raise the glass to inspiration.
There you go.
Yay.
Or a plastic bottle or something.
Yeah, whatever you can get.